For this episode, we're going to be showing off my auto chunk load inline. This is something that I found out. You can put a chunk loader inside of the spawn chunks, and then you can detect if the server or a single player world is online or not. So yeah, once you start the server or your single player world, the spawn chunk loader that we have here will kick into action because your spawn chunks are always loaded unless you have Optifine, which turns it off to save performance. There's a setting I believe that you can do that. I don't use Optifine anymore. I use Sodium for the pure performance and not the shaders. So yeah, there is something to turn it off there if you need to as well. But yeah, so we're gonna show that off, and we're going to, for this example, we're going to load this mob switch over here. So we have 576 withers over there, and that's just the number that I have for the server's count for the mob switch. That's just a full shulker of wither skeleton skulls. So you can see we have 0 out of 70. If I go in range and load it manually, that jumps up to 576. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain the chunk load inline from spawn to that, and you can do that with anything else you want. So first you're going to want to start by finding your spawn chunks here. This can easily be found with Mini-Hud, so you're going to want to get that. There, just search Mini-Hud into GitHub, and you'll probably find that there. Get your version with the release tab, and then put it in your mods folder. And this is a client-side mod, so this will work on servers even though the server doesn't have it. So you're going to want to pull up the mini Hud configurator here. You're going to hit H plus C at the same time. This will bring this up. You're going to want to go to render hotkeys and then search in spawn here. And you're going to put a hotkey for spawn chunks real. The spawn chunks player will put the spawn chunk size around the player. And then, so yeah, put a hotkey, mine's the apostrophe, so I can toggle it on and off just like this. And what you're going to want to do here is basically, the green area is your actual spawn chunks, so that is that area all inside here. Red here is the lazy loaded chunks. This is also included in your spawn, so if there is something loaded on this side, it will also be included in your spawn chunks. So you will have to clear out to this red line basically to guarantee the max performance. Yeah, if you have something right here on the very last block before it goes out of this red line, it will be loaded, but if it goes over to the other side right here, it will not be loaded. And that's basically the spawn chunks. The outer side, you don't really need to worry about that. Yeah, so we're going to try to chain a chunk loader to this. So what you're going to want to do after you figure out where your spawn chunks are inside this green area, you're going to want to build a spawn or a chunk loader inside. I would recommend building it directly in the center. That way, if you need to chain it somewhere else later, it's in the center, so you can just take it from here and go. So you're going to go that way. It's build another low line over there. So each kind of direction you could have one technically. You could have one for north, south, east, and west. And then you could load something that way. You load it that way. And just be easier to chain than having to go from over here and then chain that direction or chain over there. Yeah, so we're going to build a chunk loader line here. We're going to actually just paste the one that I have. Alright, chunk borders are up. We have our schematic in place. So what you want to do is you can see that this green box ends at the same spot as this chunk right here. So what you're going to want to do is, I like to keep it on the back side of the chunk here. You want to keep the portal on the last chunk here. This is so that it's the closest it can be to the outside. If you have it in the middle, you could do it technically, but then you need to chain more and more and more. You have it on the very edge here. This will give you the least amount of chunk loaders to do, but they can be a bit annoying. Alright, so you have the sender perma loaders, as I call it. What I would do is I recommend at least like half a stack up here, but for the spawn one, I generally just fill it up. That way that it can never run out of items. The reason why the items are here like this is because I have entity taken off because I don't want to load the withers. It will cause a bunch of lag. So what you're going to want to do for now is turn this off. You're just going to want to lock this hopper here. Easiest way to do it, just put a redstone block there, honestly. But yeah, so the hopper clock has 18 items in it. I like to keep it a little bit lower. I keep it around about 9, about half basically. That's just to guarantee that this these chunks will never unload. So very small and compact. I think it's only 6 blocks by 4 blocks. Very good for its size. And then on the other side here, we're going to want to put up a return for this. So each one will need a sender and a return, which is why you want to keep this as far away in the spawn chunks as possible and not in the center, because every chunk you'll need one. Let's go to the nether and put the return one in place. First, you're going to want to get your coords of the portal. So if this is your first one ever in your world, this should link up no problem. But you're going to want to mainly go to the roof for this, as it's a bit easier and it will not interfere with any portals as long as you correctly link them up. So ideally you would want it to be at the same Y limit, or the Y height, that way that there is no portal linking issues if you ever put a portal nearby. Alright, so you're going to get your looking at the bottom. Basically you're going to want to look at the bottom obsidian, either one, doesn't matter. So this one right here, we look at the coordinates here, 70, 138, 320. So we're going to divide those all by 8. Alright, so you don't divide the y-axis, and say you get a decimal number like I did here, 8.75. You're going to want to round that to the nearest whole number. So if it's a 5 or above, you're going to want to round it to the next number up. If it's below a 5, you're going to want to go down to, if this was 8.4, you're going to want it down to 8 even. Because there is no decimals really with the portal, because it's a full block. So we're going to want to go to 9, 138, and 40 in the nether. And our portal is already there because it's our first portal in the world. So yeah, ideally you're going to want to put this at Y138 bottom as well. So right here. Then you're going to light this portal. And then we're going to go back to the overworld real quick. So it's also very important that you build it on the right side. So our items are going to the north. That means our return has to push the items back towards the south. So here we need to have our schematic on the north side. We need to put the return. If you need to get these schematics, they will be in the description. There is a link to my Discord where I will have the schematics for both of these chunk loaders here. They're pretty simple to build. Just the hopper clocks would be the main thing to worry about. There's only one hopper clock on the sender side, and it's very important. You're going to want to have that sender schematic in the overworld. If you have the return one like this one in the overworld, that will cause issues because you need to have the item that's being sent through in the overworld. That is so that the chunks will get loaded. That will kickstart your chunk loading line. This one we're doing right now is basically the one that is going to be responsible for starting the line itself. Alright, you have your return permaloader here. This one doesn't need anything at all. It only detects the item from here, and then it sends it right back. There's no time in. Everything is handled in the system. So yeah, this is your first one done. Now basically what you're going to want to do is repeat this for quite some time now. And to confirm that it is working, just remove this redstone block here. And you should see the item get dispensed here, and let it do its course, and you can see the item got returned. And yeah, we're going to go into Nether here, and we're going to turn a game rule off here. If you don't have access to this, you'll be fine. As long as the item is cycling back through the portals here, you know that it's working. Just to show what is actually being loaded, we're going to turn spectators generate chunks false. I'm going to go into game mode spectator, and we're going to fly away, unload all these chunks that we loaded earlier. Once we see that they're all unloaded, we're going to fly back into that same direction, and we should see those 3x3 chunks being loaded by that one portal there. So you see 1, 2, 3 by 1, 2, 3. That is the area that is entity processed, so that is good. That's your first step done. So these chunks are, this is your spawn chunk loader. This is to signify whether your spawn is loaded or not. So this is your first step done, and you're on to your next step, which is just chaining this on to your destination. Alright, you can leave your first one running here and then spawn chunks. Now becomes the hard part. Basically, however far you need to chain this, you need to have one chunk loader for every single chunk. So here's our spawn one right here. So we need to go 10 chunks that way and 6 chunks that way. We need to have a spawn chunk loader for, or a chunk loader for 1, 2, 3, and 16 chunks in total, basically. So it can be a pain, but it is worth it, especially for mob switches on a server or a single player world here. So what we're going to do now is we need to actually switch it, and we need to have the sender in the nether here. So we're going to put another sender loader, and we're going to actually rotate it so that the portal is as close to the wall as possible here. And you're going to make sure that's in a straight line right here. Why are we switching into the nether instead of the overworld now? Well, since this one here is only detects to see if the server is running, we need the actual item to be sent through in the overworld there. But to chain it, we're going to do it the opposite way here. This just allows it for easy access to turn the portals on and off, because these portals will be closer together, and these ones have the hopper clock here. So like I said, to turn them off, all we need to do is put a redstone block right there. That's the easiest way I found to power it. If you want to like have this chained, you could have a slime block thing like this that you could then have a redstone signal coming from to then permanently lock this in a sense. So you could trigger if you want it on or off. If you need to turn the mob switch off for whatever reason, you would just power this and this would stop the chunk loading line. But you would need to do this for every single one of them. It's just as simple as one of these for every single one. You will need 2 slime blocks. You can't have one, or else the piston would butt itself if you place a block like this. It's called a block up detector. The redstone is getting, the piston is getting QC powered by the redstone here, so it thinks it's powered and it's actually not. You update the thing, update the piston without anything, it will cause an update, causing the piston to go up and then back down. So that's the reason why you need 2 slime blocks here. But yeah, you can just trigger this or chain this all the way down your chunk loader line. Very simple redstone line will actually do that for here. Let's just chain this back a little bit, and we'll have an on-off lamp here that is just inverted. Alright, so we have our on-off indicator lamp here. This will indicate that the chunk loading line is off, and then once that's on, that'll indicate that the line is on. So yeah, we have our next chunk loader here. Like I said, position it right up against the chunk border here, and it's going to be neat in the next chunk over from your regular spawn chunk loading, or spawn chunk loader right here. And you need to actually reverse it here and make sure that the sender, which is the one with the hopper clock, is on the nether side this time. Just for safekeeping, I like to keep this one all at 64, but for the spawn one, for whatever reason, I like to keep that on the sender side at full 9 stacks, just to ensure it never breaks whatsoever, because it'll always have items. These ones will only chain, and they will never break as long as that one loads there. These are very reliable. We've had them on our Autocraft server for about 6 months or so now, and they've never failed me at all, and the server's been up basically the whole time. We've only never needed to turn them off or on to, you know, load or unload a mob switch. So yeah, we have our sender on the other side, and that is facing towards the south, so we need to have our return loader on the south side of the portal this time. So get your coordinates again. Alright, this time we're going to need to go to 64, 138, 504. I'll throw it in the chat there, that way you can't forget it. You can always just pull up the chat again and go there. My portals will probably all generate automatically because this is a fresh world. Yeah. So this portal generated already. You can see it should be right there. If it's not, we'll actually just move it over a little bit. That's weird. should be right in the same chunk line. But 64 is on this chunk, which is over. We'll keep it here, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. We need to have ours on the south side this time. We need to put a return permaloader on the overworld side this time. Get rid of all those. And we're going to need to rotate the schematic. You can rotate the schematic. It should be pretty much non-rotation or non-directional, so everything should be perfectly fine. Obviously, you wouldn't paste it in like I would. You would build it up layer by layer is the easiest way to do it. And yeah, so let's go throw or get rid of the redstone block in the overworld. We're in the nether here, and we'll just unpower this, and we should have it working. Should see the item come back here. There it goes. You saw a little flash. A little bit quick because the hopper picks it up immediately. But like I said, to confirm this is working, we'll go to spectator. I'll fly out again and I'll fly back in. Alright, flying back in here, you can see our first chunk loader right there. And then our second one is right here. So you can see we have a 1, 2, 3, 4 by 3 now. This only extends by one chunk because this one already loads this one. So this one will just load this one. And they pretty much are intersecting right on this chunk border right here. But you can see this one loads one chunk in every direction here, like this. And this one right here loads one chunk in every direction, like this. So you have your first line in place here. So to confirm this, you could, if you're on a single player world, just leave. Obviously we're going to go out of spectator here. Actually, we could actually stay in spectator and we'll show it off the loading. So if you built it correctly, this one's in the spawn chunks. This one should load before this one here. So let's confirm our suspicions. I'm going to log out of the server, or the single player world. And we're going to wait, go back into the world. And you should see nothing for a few seconds, but then it should kick in if you built it right. There it goes. There's the first one loading. And you can see this one loads the next one right here. So in a few seconds, this one should load the next one. You should see these chunks load right there. That's the example. That's going to be what you're going to want. And as long as you have that, you should be good to go to chain it to the next one. So what we're going to do is just repeat this process for every single chunk. If you don't like having the chunk loaders up like I do all the time, what I would recommend doing is I would pretty much remember exactly where this piston would go to stop the hopper locking. So it's on the fourth block from the side here. What we're going to do is go to the fourth block from the edge. So there's the edge right there. 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. Going to want to place a sticky piston or block, sticky piston to signify where that would go. And then you don't need this anymore. You can just chain this all the way to the fourth block from the edge again. And then 1, 2, 3, up one, put that, and then you can just chain this. And that way you don't need to have the chunk borders up anymore. If you don't need it anymore, you will just have to build it on top like this. And you can start basically from there and then just move the schematic to the next one once you're done that one. And then, yeah, what I'd like to do, once I confirm that these two are working here, is I would just chain one side of the line by itself. So I'll keep building the same one over and over again as far as I need to chain it before I would go to both back and forth, because the one in the overworld is obviously 8 times further away. So this one, they are a bit further away than the one here. So it's just easier to chain this than it is to go back and forth. My recommendation for you, if you want to do this and it's over a long distance, do every single one in the nether before you go to the overworld. Just a bit easier to do, because the return ones are a bit easier to build because they have no hopper clucks. Well, so what happens if you need to go to a different direction here? Well, so this one loads this chunk right here and this one right here, plus this one on the side here. So it loads these 3 chunks as well, and the same for all corners. So basically what we could do, if you want to keep it in a straight line, you can go to this chunk here, but if you want to make it as quick as possible, you could go over to this one here, and based off how far you need to go, you can build it anywhere in the chunk. The easiest one is just the middle of the chunk for symmetry, but you can honestly build it anywhere in the chunk as long as it is in the chunk itself. So what you're going to want to do is then, I like to keep the portal on the very edge of the chunk here, right up on the edge here. Gives you the most amount of space you could use for the next chunk loader. And then yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to just paste the sender again on the side here. We're going to lock it in place, and then we can just chain this. Obviously we will put it on the same Y if you are the smart person here, but I didn't paste it in at the right Y-axis. But you would just chain this, and you'll probably need another repeater in the middle of here because this is a far pole, so let's just check that. Yes. So you can place a repeater anywhere. Save on dust, you can just place a block here, and that will carry the signal through it. And then yeah. So we have our next one in place here. We're going to need to see where this ends up. This should build a new portal for me because I am in the new world. If you are on a server, obviously you can see my lag is through the roof right now because I am loading the withers, and there's a bunch of them. There's a 576. If we go to the log mobcaps here, see this 576 withers in that little area right there. But yeah, if you are on a server and you are the admin or in a single player world, just lower your render distance. I like to use it the 2 if I'm ever working like this. That way that won't load it. This portal is actually a bit too far from it. We're going to want to put our portal to load this actually right here. So this is where we're going to want to put the portal in this chunk here. I'm just going to use a set block command because I am in a void world. And get one here. This portal can be anywhere. So you're going to want to keep it so our chunk with the switch is right here. What we're going to want to do is go 1, 2 chunks away right here. This is where we want this portal. This won't be your final portal selection or position here because it will just eventually link up and we'll just move it. So you don't want to build a chunk loader here yet. You'll just build a portal for now, but you'll see that this will still load this. Even though we saw before that the portal only loads a 3x3 area here, this is for entity processing. We don't want that for this amount of withers here, or any mouse switch rather. It's a lot of lag. You don't want it. What you're going to want to do is place this next chunk over, which is a lazy chunk, it's considered. So it will lazy load the withers, but it'll still load them. It just won't cause as much lag. So see, right here, look at the MS. I'm basically a movable chunk loader right now. See, when I'm in this chunk right here, we're at 1 MS. If I go over to the next one right here, it shoots up drastically because I am loading the withers myself. Basically, this would be an entity processing chunk in a chunk loader. So you can see my MS is really high right now. That is very not good. So yeah, let's go over one more chunk and you can see the MS drops down basically to nothing. So yeah, you're gonna want to keep this portal in mind and make sure it generates its own portal here, which it did not. So we're gonna want to go back and find that portal, mark down its coordinates. Alright, so my numbers when I divided, got 38.8, so run it to 39, and then 68.6 to 69. So we're gonna go there in the nether here, 38. So it is in the next chunk right here. So we're gonna want to looking at block 38 and then 69. So one block over to the side, right there. Now, if you wanted to be in perfect sync, you could just move this portal over, and that wouldn't be an issue. This case, it actually lines up perfectly for us. I mean, for the chunks here. So this one will load this one right here. So this isn't a fast chunk that I keep that in mind. This is just a very simple one. So it won't be very fast at all to turn on off a server start because you need to wait for the item to come through. To make it faster, you could do what I do and decrease the amount of hopper or the amount of items in the spawn sender one on the overworld side, and then at the same time here decrease all these to 9 items. That will cycle the items quicker, and that will technically then load the line quicker. It will send the item through quicker through the portal constantly, so that will add to lag a little bit. It won't be noticeable at all because if they're still loaded, they just get constantly re-updated quicker, which could add to lag, but not really needed there. So yeah, we have our destination portal right here, and it just happens that this one is right the next chunk over, which is what we want. Remember from the first one here, we have chunk, then chunk, and then this one will load this one because of the way the portal chunk loader works. Loads it in one every direction. This one is in the corner here, still get loaded. So we're going to have our sender schematic. I'm going to want to put that on here. If it is too close, it shouldn't be. But if it's for some reason basically right up against this one, just rotate the schematic here and line it up that way. So say your portal is right here. Hopefully it's not right there. You could, however, just move this one back further, but they shouldn't interfere with it like this. I haven't tested it, so I wouldn't trust me on that. Let's do your own test in here. But one gap is always good. But for us, we have enough space that we're just going to paste it in right there. And then we're going to lock it for now. We're going to update this 64 items. And then put that 64 as well. We do also have to do 2 of them now in the overworld, so we're going to want to get coordinates for both of these, and then multiply by 8, and then go to the overworld and build these portals. We already have this one in place. What you do is put a return one on this one, and they should be on the both same side because this portals are always facing the same direction, as long as you don't rotate them, of course. So like this one, they're going to be on different sides here, but if you continue this line like this one, continue this over here, your return should be on the same side every single time. So that could be an easy way to remember what you need to do and what direction you need to look for your schematic. This one, both of our returns are going to be on the east side of the portal. So we'll go through the one we already have placed here earlier. See this one here, so we're going to go here to the east side of the portal. We're going to have our return move to us. And then make sure it's rotated so that the portal lines up, but the rest of the redstone on the east side of it. Paste that in here. Alright, now see for you build this up. And then this should be good. So we remove that and go back to the overworld. We are at our correct portal here. They should all link perfectly fine if you line them up perfectly and don't mess up the y-axis. Alright, confirming it's working here. You can see the item getting sent back and forth. This time worked out really well here. So 248, 138, 544. Basically created it where we needed it. So 248, a little bit backwards. 248 right there. And then what was it? 544. We'll build it as close as we can to the chunk border here. Don't really want to go over the next chunk if you want it to be clean. If you want it to be perfect, you could just line it up there and you won't have any issues. But I believe our next portal should be right over here. Yep, you can see just how close they are. Usually, let's go see the other portals here, how far away they are. We'll go a bit as a ways away. Don't want to load the switches here, so here is our first one, which is only one chunk away in the nether, mind you. So you can see that is our other chunk loader over there. And that is the next one in the overworld. 10 chunks in between them, so 12 chunks. They are apart from each other. And yeah, so those ones being close together is only because of the way we have them set up inside the chunk there. So we're going to lower our render distance back down to work. We don't load the withers there. And we're going to head back to our portal right here. So we're going to put our next return, make sure it is on the east side of the portal, all the redstone. Put that in place here. Build that up for you. And then this should be good. So we go to the nether again. And then we're going to actually adjust this here, because this is built one too high. I'm going to want to turn this one off now for the sake of the line itself. You can turn it on and off. And then we're going to get our line right here. Attach this up. Yeah, it's going to switch the line off here. So they all should be extended, which will pause this one here. Make sure your hoppers all get to the amount. Let's, for the sake of this, let's just take all those out, put them in there, put it at 18, so they're all at 18, and make sure that they all should have at least a stack at the top here to guarantee that they never run out of items. The spawn one will always be loaded. You can't really turn that one off, at least you shouldn't. That way, no matter if you have it locked and if you start the server, obviously then that one will not load off server start because it is locked on the overworld. But as long as you have these ones turned on, this will be good. But it's always safe. It's always good to have this one turn on off the server or on the server start or single player world. So yeah, I'm gonna turn these ones on here. And we're going to actually leave the game, and we should see on the indicator here the mob switch will turn on. So we'll go in the nether with our low render distance, and we'll just sit in the spawn chunks, and if that number pops up 576, that means our switch gets loaded, and it'll be pretty much good to go there. So yeah, we're going to turn it on, go to the overworld, and then quit the game. We're going to just go back into the world here, and if you built it all correctly, in a few seconds we should see that the mob switch turns on here. There we go. Our mob switch kicked in. You can see that that 576 number popped up there, and that means if we go into spectator here, if we turn our render up a bit again, and we follow our chunk loading line, that our chunks are loaded. Now it would be best to have actually blocks underneath here to show you what is actually loaded, but it is a 3x3 chunk area here that is actually loaded around the portal. Best way to see this would be to go into the nether here, go to lower our render real quick, that way we don't load too much area. Go back into creative, go into spectator, and make sure we have that game rule that turns off spectators generate chunks, and then you can see our line active right here itself. So since we did cut that one corner here and made the portal next to here, this corner chunk won't be loaded, but you can see all of our important chunks here are loaded, and our line chained all the way to here. Like I said, I did have to speed up that us waiting for the line to kick into action because it is not a fast chunk loading line. If we wanted to improve the speed, we could take out half the items here, which just decreased the amount of time between items getting sent through the portals. Now that could interfere with some people, but honestly it just makes the line activate quicker, and if you have a long line, this could take quite some time to chain together. But yeah, you can see that did work, and I'm going to do it again here just to confirm that it is reliable. So we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading line, and we're going to go into our chunk loading we actually don't even need to turn the switch, the line off, because if we just go to the overworld again, and then just simply log out, and if we go back into it, you can see that the mob switch is off. If we go to log mob caps again, you can see that we have no mobs up there. But if we just wait again, and then it'll kick into action again. So this is useful for servers. I find it really useful for servers. If I make a backup on my Autocraft server, and I just launch the server back up, and just wait some time, a little bit, like a few seconds, like 15 or so seconds, both switches will kick in for the nether and the overworld. So that means I never have to log back into the server myself to turn them on. But yeah, there we go, right there. The switch turned back on, and we have our overworld switch on again. This can work with the nether as well. Obviously, you can just chain this same thing to the nether mob switch, and you can have them both turn on and off the same thing. Or you do what I do in the Autocraft world, and I'll go show you, is we have a separate on-off for both switches. So let's go to the Autocraft SMP, and we'll show that off there. Alright, never seen the Autocraft SMP. This is our nether hub here. So we have our overworld switch right here, and I have just a simple clock here, the lamp indicator. So this will let you know when the switch is on or off. This one, it just gives enough time to turn that switch back off there. So we chain this because our hub is over here, and our spawn chunk loader is right here. You can see we don't have it turned on or off at all. But yeah, so this is our next one here. We just chain this to the overworld one right here, right there. And then when we have the nether one, we'll chain that one up to right here to then chain it that way. We have sort of the nether side here. We still need to do the overworld side, but that's pretty easy. And yeah, so we pretty much have it all. So we just chain this one, like I said, to this one, and then we chain it over, and then over again, because that's where our 3x3x1 bedrock formation is in the overworld. And then yeah, various same concept. We just use the rails here in between to transfer the signal. You could use redstone dust, anything like that. Rails are just easier and easier to use in a sense, but they do require you to use it more often than a repeater and redstone dust. But it's personal preference, honestly. So whatever is easier for you to do. But yeah, honestly, that's pretty much all it is. Like I said, how to get schematics in the description up below. Join the Discord, and I will have a text channel for the chunk load in line. It will say hashtag chunk load in line schematics, and they'll both be in there for the sender and the permaloader. But yeah, that's all from me. And like I said, we have one for the overworld there, and then the other side here is for the nether. So yeah, press the button here, turn it on and off. You can just have this go to a simple on-off switch, but you need to wait for the hopper clock to enough time to kick in before you unload it, or else it won't actually load itself. Make sure to like, subscribe, all those sorts of things, and I'll see you in the next one.